The hearing room smelled of disinfectant and ceremony. That combination was the commission's signature. The Vethrani Biological Compliance Commission had, over its 240-year history, turned sanitation into theater. Every surface gleamed. Every delegate wore a filtration sash across their chest. The air circulators ran at a frequency that made the back of your teeth ache, and the holographic index panels along the upper tier cycled through pathogen classifications in 3 scripts simultaneously, because the commission wanted you to understand, at all times, exactly how much it knew about the biological universe and how little you did by comparison. I have been sitting in that room for 11 days. My name is Rin Valdez. My title, for the purposes of the commission's record, was Senior Biological Trade Attaché, Earth Mission to the Outer Accord. My actual function, which the commission had never bothered to investigate, was considerably more specific. I had spent 9 years before this posting reading the commission's own documentation. All of it. The public index, the restricted supplement, the procedural annexes that dated back to the body's founding charter. I read them the way a navigator reads charts. Not for interest, but because the water you don't know is the water that kills you. I mention this only because it is relevant to what happened on the 12th day. The commission had called the session a biological compliance review, which was the polite institutional language for what it actually was, a quarantine declaration dressed in procedure. Commissioner Prel Sothvin, a Vethrani elder with gray-blue banding along his cranial ridge and the practiced stillness of someone who had delivered bad news to species he considered lesser for the better part of a century, opened the session at precisely the 8th hour. He read the charge into the record without looking up. Earth mission personnel had been operating in outer accord space for 7 years without submitting to the Commission's biological certification protocol. All trade operating licenses issued to Earth mission would be suspended, effective immediately, pending full biological review. The Earth delegation would be quarantined to their assigned quarters in the Commission Annex for the duration of the review process, which Commissioner Sothvin noted, with the particular care of a man who knows exactly what he's doing, could take between 18 and 36 months to complete. The chamber received this the way a satisfied audience receives a curtain call. Delegates from 11 species leaned toward one another. A few made notation gestures on their personal recording slates. The Orvith representatives in the upper tier, the Commission's oldest and most reliably hostile members, did not bother to suppress their approval. Our delegation was 5 people. I was the senior attaché. Beside me sat Mira Ewan, my junior aide, who was 26 years old and had the useful quality of being able to control her face entirely. On my other side sat our trade liaison, David Foss, a man who had spent 15 years in outer accord commerce and had the patience of someone who had watched many rooms make decisions they would later regret. We had 1 translator and 1 archivist. The archivist's name was Seela Park. She had been with the Earth mission longer than I had. When Commissioner Sothvin finished reading the quarantine order into the record, he looked up for the first time. It was a practiced gesture. He was waiting for the response, the objection, the appeal to procedure, the request for an extension. That was the formula. A species under quarantine asked for relief, and the Commission granted or withheld it. And either way, the Commission remained the body that decided. I looked at Seela. She had already opened her document case. She placed a single printed filing on the table in front of me. Not a data slate, not a projection, but a physical printed document on Commission standard paper stock, which is a detail that mattered because the Commission's own procedural rules specified that primary archival filings were only valid if entered in physical form. She had known that for 11 years. I slid the document across the table to the clerk's position and said nothing. The clerk, a young Vethrani junior officer who had probably expected this session to be a formality, looked down at the document. He looked up at me. He looked back at the document. His job required him to log whatever was placed before him into the permanent record before the session could continue, and he was too junior to know he should have asked someone more senior what to do first. He logged it. The filing's title, which appeared in the Commission's own archival display system the moment it was logged, read, Corrective Supplement to the Vethrani Biological Compliance Index, Pathogen Classification Series 7 through 14, submitted under Earth Mission Accreditation number 0047, Rho, filed in the Commission's permanent record on the 22nd day of the 9th cycle, 11 years prior. The Commission's index system was automated. It had to be 240 years of biological filings from 43 species required a system that could cross-reference without human intervention. The moment the clerk confirmed the document's entry, the index system did what it had been designed to do. It checked the filing against the Commission's existing classification record. The display panels along the upper tier stopped cycling. They stopped because the index system had found something that required priority flagging. A corrective supplement that had been sitting in the permanent record for 11 years, properly filed, properly accredited, never acted upon, which contained, organized by Earth Mission's own biological survey teams, the complete pathogen classification data for Series 7 through 14. Series 7 through 14 were the exact classification series the Commission had cited as the basis for the quarantine order. Earth Mission had not failed to submit biological certification data. Earth Mission had submitted it in complete form under the Commission's own procedural requirements 11 years ago. The Commission had simply never processed it. Under Article 7, Section 4 of the Commission's founding charter, a section I had read 9 years ago and have been patient about ever since, an unprocessed corrective supplement to the primary index, once confirmed in the permanent record, transferred interim certification authority for the relevant classification series to the submitting accreditation holder until the supplement was formally reviewed and incorporated. The submitting accreditation holder was Earth Mission, accreditation number 0047. The quarantine order was suspended by operation of the Commission's own rules. Earth Mission held interim certification authority over the classification series the quarantine had been predicated on. We didn't hold a license. We held the body that granted them. Commissioner Safin did not make a sound. I will give him that. He had enough self-possession to sit with what had just happened in silence, which was more than several of the Orvith delegates managed. One of them stood up, started to say something in the Commission's formal address register, and then sat back down because there was nothing in the procedural framework that gave him a place to stand. Mira Ewan, who was 26 years old and had controlled her face through 11 days of quarantine and ceremony and a public humiliation reading, allowed herself one slow exhale. That was the only sound from our side of the table. I gathered my notes. David Foss capped his stylus. Sheila Park closed her document case with the quiet efficiency of someone who had done the thing she came to do. We stood. We walked out. I did not look at Safin on the way to the door. Not because I was angry, I was not particularly, but because there was nothing in his face I needed to see. I had read what I needed 11 years ago. The room had just caught up. The Commission issued a formal acknowledgement of the corrective supplement 41 days later. The processing review took another 7 months. At no point during that period did any delegate request a meeting with our mission. At no point did Commissioner Safin's office send a communication. The trade operating licenses, once the review concluded, were reinstated with a notation in the Commission's public record that Earth Mission had maintained compliant biological certification status continuously for the prior 11 years. They had a quarantine protocol for every pathogen. They just hadn't read their own index.